Okay, so I'm going to be walking you through my database. This database is for a special education program here in Provo. The reason this database was needed is because there's a lot of student information that they have to keep track of. For special education students, they have different classifications and service levels. They also have testing that they have to go through. And they also have IEP meetings, so that's when the teacher meets with parents to discuss the student's progress. This is actually for my wife, who's a teacher at Timpanogos Elementary here in Provo. As I was talking to her about doing the project, she said one of the concerns, or one of the problems they have is that they have a bunch of different Google Docs that hold all the different information in them, and it's just a big list of stuff, and it's not easily sortable or organized. And so she said this database would be a good thing to help out with organizing the data quickly, and as well as adding different records. So the first step, I made a data model just to map everything out. I put everything into the relationships part of Access as well. The main table here is the student table. Since all the information pretty much revolves around the students, it has the most information in it. Has a student ID, name, date of birth. It also has different information that's pertinent to the students' progress in special education. The disability is what their disability is, so that identifies like what kind of program they need. The teacher is their homeroom teacher, so these students are actually in a classroom with a regular teacher, and then they have a special ed teacher that comes in and helps out during the class, so that's what the case manager is. And then their grade is just their grade, and the service level is the amount of attention that they need, how severe their disability is. So all of that information has been broken out into tables. So there's the one-to-many relationship. All of these students, it's a one-to-many relationship. There's only one disability, one teacher, one case manager per student. An initial concern I had was with a student changing teachers or case managers from year to year. I was concerned that it would create some update anomalies in the database, but after consulting with my wife, that information isn't needed for each transaction or thing that's entered into the database, and so that can just be updated from year to year in the student's information. It just needs to be known that who the teacher is and who the case manager is, so they can keep track of everything. The transaction tables are this IEP meeting table. So this is each student has an IEP meeting. It's about once a year, and so there's a due date. So the federal government has a law that they have to have these meetings every year, so there's a due date and a meeting date. So this information helps the special education department plan out these meetings and keep track of which students need meetings when. The next table I have is this test taken table. So this is a transaction table to record tests taken by each student. So a student can take a lot of tests, and it needs to be recorded which tests they took, how they scored, additional comments about that test, and there's also 9 different tests, so that they're in that test table. And then the last transaction table is a comment log. So periodically they need to record comments about the students, how they're doing in their progress, like what problems they have. And so this is a table with the date, the student ID, and the comment. So there's a log of comments and that can be looked at to track the students' progress over time and see how they're doing. And that information is useful when like IEP meetings come up. They can discuss the progress as time goes on. So For this project, because all the information is confidential, I had to make up some fake information because my wife couldn't give me like the real information. So I generated a bunch of fake information to fill in for the tables. The case manager table. So these are actually the real case managers of the school. So this won't need to be changed. And the teachers as well. My wife gave me the names of some real teachers. The students. So I generated all this information just so it could be seen like what the database can do. And so I just put random dates and IDs for the students. This disability table, so there's 13 different disabilities that a student can have. So these are all here with their disability names. The same thing with the grade. These won't change, so this is just like standard information that's needed to be called upon. The same thing with tests. So these tests are just used in the test table. So for the transactions, the comment log. So I generated this information as well. So a lot of the comments are repeated, but the general idea is there of what kind of information we put in there. And then this IEP meeting table generated that information as well. And I also generated tests for different students. So I pre-populated the database with all this information. The next step in the database was creating forms so that you could update this information. So for the information that would be updated or changed regularly, I made forms for things like the grade and disability. That's just standard information that's not changed, so I didn't make forms for that. But that could easily be changed in the table if that was absolutely necessary. These forms are for convenience. So this student form, if you want to add a new student, you just click on this add button, and the student ID will just pre-populate with whatever the next available ID number is. You can enter in a first and last name in the text as well as a date. You can select the date of birth from here. The same thing with the eligibility date. So this is when they need to be, their special education status needs to be reviewed. And this can be updated periodically. You pick the disability from a drop-down box. So I made this convenient for users. Instead of putting in the ID for the disability, I have a drop-down box with all the disabilities listed, so they can click one. So I mean, we can enter in some information. So we'll just enter in some fake information. Just put both of them as today, and then the disability will do autism. And the teacher, pick that, the grade level, service level, and case manager. I'll pick my wife. So all these drop-down boxes, they're for convenience. They also act as controls, so the user doesn't enter in any wrong information. There's also a control of the student ID, how it picks the next one. So when you want to add the record, you just click add, and it adds it to the database. And then if we go through the records, we'll see that Scott Summers has been added as a student with the student ID and all his information. So as you can see here, I mean, you can toggle through. You can go to the first one, the last one. You can add, delete your record. You can also, if you're making a new record, you can undo the changes, or if you're updating a record, you can undo changes if you make a mistake. So if we delete something accidentally, we can undo those changes. When you update the record, it just updates it automatically, so there's no security or password or controls for that. This database didn't need to be, I guess, high security when it comes to like updating, because it's just teachers, so there's not really any like danger in them, messing anything up, because they can always fix it, and they always have hard copies that they can refer to. If you want to search for a student, you can click. And if you wanted to search for a student ID, you could click the find, and it will find the student. So that's another feature, and then you can close the form with this button. So do the same thing with teacher form, case manager form. These all are similar to the student. So if there's new teachers hired or teachers change, or if there's new case managers, they can update those and delete those as needed. Let's see. So I also made forms for the transactions. So if you want to make a comment about a student, you can just you can click the student from the drop down box. So these are all the students. You can just search for a name, it would find it, and then you enter in the date and the comments. So I added myself in the database. So the date is today. So you can add that record, and then it adds it to the database. So we see here the 161st comment is the one I just added. You can also search through the comments and update them. You can use the find as well. So that's useful. And so the IEP meeting scheduler, so this just acts in the same way. You can add, delete, update on those transactions if you need to fix something. And then finally the test taken form. So the test taken form, this is just recording the tests. So we can create a new test. Let's see. So we'll do a test for Scott Summers. The SRI test. So one control I did on this, the test score is on a scale of 1 to 100. So if you put in like 100, there's a control like not allowing you to put in that score. So let's say you got a 95, and usually there's some comments like how many words the student read per minute. So we'll say you read 40 words per minute. So we'll add that. So we can see that that's updated to the database now. Is the last one. So after creating those forms, I then created like reports that would be useful in accessing this information. So some of the main forms, let's see, I did a student roster. So this just lists the students in alphabetical order and all their information. And it's all like useful information. It's not like the ID numbers, so the teacher knows what information is just by looking at the report. I based these off queries I did. So I based the student form off this query. So this query is just basically selecting the important information from the student table and not using the ideas. I also, as you can see, I changed the names of the field names so they'd be more convenient with spaces and just better presentable information. So there's a student roster report that holds the students. I have a teacher list. I just made this from the teacher table since it just had using the first and last names. And I did a case manager one, so that all that information can be viewed easily. So I did a comment log report. So this comment log report lists the comments by student in alphabetical order. So like Andrew Bowl, we see he has a lot of comments. And it has all the dates of when the comments were made. So that's useful if you want to look at the comments. There's an IEP meeting report. So my wife, in consulting with her, she said the most useful thing would be to separate the IEP meetings by month. because the most important thing is knowing when the meeting is. So the first IEP meetings I put in were for September. So in September 2015, we know all these students have IEP meetings that are due. It's also split up by the case manager, since the case manager is the person that actually handles the IEP meeting. So that way this report can be printed out, passed out to all the teachers. They can look at their students when the IEP is due, the student name and their disability, so they can get those scheduled. So that report's useful in just keeping track of that information. And then I have the testing report. So this is a record of the students' testing. So we see Patsy Bachman here. She's taken these 3 tests. Shows her score she got on them and the words per minute. And so this is useful for an IEP meeting. This, along with the comment log report, can be printed out for a student and used during the meeting. So you can quickly access all their scores, since it's in alphabetical order, and all the comments about them. So that's used for these IEP meetings. So, and again, I base these all off queries. So you can look at the queries. The queries weren't overly complicated. They just needed to be right and have the correct information. So I just made sure that they were correct, that they had the user-friendly field names to be used with the forms and the reports. And so then, to wrap it all up, I put everything in this navigation form. So this is the form that the teachers will actually use. This will just be hidden on the side there with all the backup information. So these forms that the teachers will actually use, you can see it says Timpanogos Elementary, special education. The student roster comes up by default. So the special education case managers, teachers can go through all these reports with ease. So all this is very, very easily accessed with this navigation form. So the feature that I made that I thought would be most convenient is, so when you selected the student roster, if you need to update a student or add a student or delete a student, you just click on the student update form and then it'll go right to it. And we've already gone over how to use that. So that's easily accessed from the student roster. You just click on this update form. So the same thing with teachers. You can update the teachers using this. Case manager, you can update the case manager with that. Testing report, and then you can report a new test, and so on. So it's very user-friendly, very simple for these teachers to use and to add records. And I guess we can look at the record I created for Scott Summers. So we see there that record exists right here. And then the test for Scott Summers as well, right? So Scott Summers, there's the test I reported, so it's updated in the report, easily accessed. And yeah, so that's about it. This is the main functionality of my project. I consulted with my wife, and she's used it, and she found it very convenient to use. So I'm confident that a person with minimal skills in Microsoft Access will be able to use this database and use it efficiently, and it'll actually help them. What else? Yeah, so the main thing going forward with this project, I'll deliver it to my wife, and then they can delete all this fake information out of the database, and they can start entering in the actual student information. The student information can easily be imported from Excel. They can just copy and paste in their Google Docs and import it into the database, and I can help with that as well when they do that. So going forward, it shouldn't be too complicated to get all that information in the database, and they can start using it to increase the efficiency of the special education department at Timpanogos Elementary School. And this has been my project. Thank you so much for listening.